Nandana Prajajanarandana Jasodanandana Prajajanarandana Jamuna Tiravana Tadi Jamuna Tiravana Tadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tiravana Tadi Jamuna Tiravana Tadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hadi Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Hari Vijagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki He's the official Mridanga player. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. We've been reading from Canto 10, Chapter 12, which is the story of Aghasura and his deliverance. And we're getting close to the end of the chapter. The pastime has been narrated. The pastime of the boys going to the forest with the calves. This comes right before Brahma Vimohan Leelas, and so Krishna's 5, and the still herding calves, not cows yet, and we heard description of different relationships of friendship, the Sakya Rasa, this Suhrit and Maitri, and Krishna's cowherd boyfriends. They're in their own category. They just play. That's what the cowherd boys do with Krishna. That's their friendship. And so we hear that they're playing activities. We hear about the exuberation, the jubilation that Shukadeva Goswami expresses about how fortunate they are. Krita Punya Punja, comparing them to Gyanis and Yogis and elevated devotees and materialists, and they're the best. And for that matter, all the residents of Vrindavan. He goes into a kind of spontaneous expression of ecstatic appreciation of them. And then next is the change of scene. Yogamaya potency calls Aghasura to come. Aghasura does what Aghasura does. The cowherd boys are in such a joyful, playful, sporting mood. When they see Aghasura, there's mixed responses. What is it? Some are afraid, some are just whatever. So they need to decide, let's go, and Krishna will protect us. So they enter his mouth, and the cows wagging their tails, waving their tails in the air, go charging after the boys. Krishna has a pause in Yogamaya potency, causing him to be apparently, although he's omniscient, bewildered. And then he knows what to do when he does it, and he delivers Aghasura. And as he's walking from the mouth of Aghasura, the soul of Aghasura enters into the body of Krishna. Then we hear this nice explanation where Sukadeva Goswami is explaining that some people are astonished at hearing that a demon gets liberation. And then he goes on, at least the acharyas go on to say, it's not just Sayuja, it's Salokya and Sarupya. And then there's some nice discussion about how that's possible. Then comes text 39. So the qualification to get delivered. We're going to hear about that. If only once, or even by force, one brings the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into one's mind, one can attain the supreme salvation by the mercy of Krishna, as did Aghasura. Shukadeva speaking. What then is to be said of those whose hearts the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters when he appears as an incarnation? Or those who always think of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the source of transcendental bliss for all living entities, and by whom all illusion is completely removed. And this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. The process for receiving the favor of the Supreme Personality of God, it is described here. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya, 4:22:39. Simply by thinking of Krishna, one can attain him very easily. Krishna is also described as having his lotus feet always within the hearts of his devotees. Bhagavan Bhakta Hridi Stitaha. In the case of Aghasura, one may argue that he was not a devotee. The answer to this is that he thought of Krishna for a moment with devotion. Bhaktyaham ekaya grayaha. Without devotion, one cannot think of Krishna, semicolon. And conversely, whenever one thinks of Krishna, one undoubtedly has devotion. Of course, Kamsa thought of Krishna a lot, and he wasn't with devotion. Although Aghasura's purpose was to kill Krishna, for a moment Aghasura thought of Krishna with devotion. And Krishna and his associates wanted to sport within Aghasura's mouth. Similarly, Putana wanted to kill Krishna by poisoning him, but Krishna took her as his mother because he had accepted the milk of her breast. Svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Bhagavad Gita 240. Especially when Krishna appears as an avatar, anyone who thinks of Krishna in his different incarnations, Ramadi Murtushakala Niyamena Tishtan, and especially in his original form as Krishna, attains salvation. There are many instances of this, and among them is Aghasura, who attained the salvation of Sarupya Mukti. Therefore, the process is Tatatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dritavrataha. Those who are devotees always engage in glorifying Krishna. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam. When we speak of Krishna, we refer to all his avatars such as Krishna, Govinda, Narayan, Vishnu, Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, Balaram, Shyam Sundar. One who always thinks of Krishna must attain vimukti, special salvation, as the Lord's personal associate. Not necessarily in Vrindavan, but at least in Vaikuntha. This is called Sarupya Mukti. So from the previous verse, the Sarupya Mukti term isn't used. It's a form like the Lord's. Go back. Yeah. Atma Samyam. Atma Samyam. In this case, Atma is meaning the Lord. And Samyam, Prabhupada's word for word, is to a body exactly resembling that of Narayana. And some of the commentators take it that that's Sarupya. And some of the commentators take it it's Brahman, Atma Samyam, not a body, but spiritual existence. Just because this goes back to Saturday evening, it's a few days ago, we discussed this question. Demons killed by Krishna, what kind of, do they all become liberated? And for your reference, it's a nice purport, verse and purport, actually. 2.7.3435. 2.7.3435. In that chapter, it's a description of the forms of the Lord, the avatars, like Canto 1, Chapter 3, same Canto 2, Chapter 7. In relation to Krishna, there's a long list. I'll read the long list. All demoniac persons like, well, it gives the names, and those killed by Krishna's devotees, Baladev, Arjun, Bhima, etc. All the demons thus became killed would attain either impersonal Brahmajyoti or his personal abode in the Vaikuntha planets. And that's the verse. And then the commentary, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur commentary says the same. The only exception he gives is the 7 bulls that were killed by Krishna. They'll attain liberation at another time. Among the demons, Pralamba, Denuka, and others will get Sayuja, and Pondraka, Dantavakra, and others will get Vaikuntha. This will be understood from later statements. So it's far more elaborate. Laghu Bhagavatamrita describes like this why it was that Shishupal got liberation, but Hiranyakashipu and Ravana did not, although they were killed by expansions of Krishna or Lila avatars. Then there's this, just repeating something from Saturday evening. In Krishna Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami discusses the visit to the abode of Mahavishnu that Krishna and Arjuna do when the 6 sons of the Brahmana were missing. They went to the abode of Mahavishnu. They were there. And what it says there is he thanked Krishna for coming, said, I just wanted to see you and Arjuna, and you appeared in this world to kill demons. When you kill those demons, they will enter into the light of my abode. That's where demons, one of the places, one of the explanations of where the Sayuja is, they enter into the light of Mahavishnu. There's other lights, there's other jyotis that they may enter. Anyway, there's more involved, pages and pages and pages of description of all these things. Here's another detail. In Srila Prabhupada's purport, Canto 7, Chapter 2, this is Narada speaking to Yudhisthira. In some cases, the living entities killed by the Supreme Lord, they enter into his effulgence, they attain Sayuja, and after attaining Sayuja Mukti, the demons are sometimes promoted to the Vaikuntha world, where they receive the reward of the Lord's garland prasad. Prabhupada's purport. 7 to text 7 and 8. So, in other words, in short, that Aghasura achieves Sayuja and that Aghasura achieves Sarupya, they're not contradictory. It's one of those circumstances, doesn't give the technology of how it happens, but the Lord may elevate someone from Sayuja to Salokya. He gives them special mercy, and that happens. There's something in the 8th canto, one devotee came up with this example. Sometimes that happens. It's the exception, it's not the rule. But the Lord is all powerful. He can do such things. So, Aghasura was killed. Now this verse 39 is describing the mercy of Krishna by which that happens. That somehow there was some moment of devotion. Doesn't give the detail. Moment of devotion in Aghasura. And that was enough. Not only liberation, but Sarupya. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, this verse speaks of the cause of Aghasura gaining Sarupya Mukti. For Krishna, whose form, Anga Patima, meditated upon by the mind, Mano Mayi, awarded that supreme destination, Bhagavati Gati, to Khatvanga and others who had directly an eternal body, Niyatma. Oh, Krishna has directly an eternal body, is direct perception of happiness, is the destroyer of Maya, who is the avatari, Krishna, who entered into the demon's stomach, Aghasura. Is it so astonishing? However, in the case of Khatvanga and others, the cause of their attaining the Lord was devotion. In Aghasura, however, the absence of devotion acts as a deterrent in attaining the Lord, for the Lord says, same as what Prabhupada quotes in his purport, Bhaktyaham ekaya graya. That's a phrase that's from Uddhava Gita, 11.14.21, and it's very similar to the Bhagavad Gita verse that says, Bhaktya mama bijanati, the same meaning, Bhaktyaham ekaya graya. It's only by devotion one can attain me. And the reply, Vishwanath writes, that's true. That rule is there, but it's true that there are exceptions to that rule. When Krishna comes as avatar, a person can attain his abode simply by contact, because of the extra surge of his perfect Kripa Shakti at that time. That is why it is said by the gopis to Krishna, 10:29-15, those who approach me, Krishna says, those who approach me in just one of these modes, lust, anger, fear, affection, oneness, friendship, and devotion, certainly attain love of that nature. Do not think this is astonishing for Krishna, the master of yoga. He gives liberation not only to humans, but also to non-moving entities, which comes in the next verse. It's this chapter 29 verse section. The chapter 29 verse is just the prelude before the rasa dance. So Krishna's being approached by the gopis, they're offering prayers, he's speaking to them. The non-moving living entities also receive liberation by contact with Krishna, or just contact with Krishna's flute, or seeing him pass by. That Krishna gives liberation to his enemies is a remarkable quality of his completeness. He does, however, reward according to the mood of the person approaching him. From the statement that Aghasura's body became the playground for the boys for many days, it should be understood that the demon's unfavorable attitude had been transformed into favorable attitude, and that he had attained Sarupya in Vaikuntha. But he did not attain a form in Vrindavan because of his lack of that particular type of bhakti. Very profound. Jiva Goswami writes, the verse, Jiva Goswami writes, the verse, this is Ankura speaking, shows that using the fickle mind alone is inferior to using the deity forms made of stone or metal to produce constant vision of the Lord's beauty. Sridhar Swami mentions Prahlad as an example of thinking of a deity form and then placing the deity form forcibly in the heart. However, Prahlad had a natural tendency to make the Lord appear within, not by using force. The Lord dwelling within destroys Maya by eternally being in the position to give the Atma bliss. Or, the Lord constantly gives all jivas the experience of happiness, nityatma, sukhanubhuti, because he completely, abhi is this word abhi, there's a play on this word abhi, he completely, abhi, destroys Maya. Brahma says in his prayers to Krishna, chapter 14, Atraiva Maya Dharma Navatare, my dear Lord, in this incarnation you have proved that you are the supreme controller of Maya. He's saying that after his vision of what he saw when the calves and the cowherd boys all transformed themselves into forms of Narayan, etc., etc. He is superior to all others because he manifests his nature of unlimited qualities as Bhagavan. And this verse, this is the last section, this verse, text 39, 10, 12, 39, is reference to it is made in Jiva Goswami's commentary on the very last chapter of the 10th canto, 1090-48. Shukadev also refutes those who are mistaken about Krishna's human form. He quotes a whole series of verses, starting with this chapter 12, text 12. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, whose foot dust cannot be seen by yogis in samadhi, who have controlled their mind by severe hardship for many births, is eternally situated here, directly visible to the eyes of the people of Raja. Oh, how can the good fortune of the people of Raja be described? That's Shukadev Goswami describing the fortune of the cowherd boys in the early parts of the chapter. 12. Chapter 9, that's the Damodara Lila. The Supreme Lord has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. These are descriptions given by Jiva Goswami to help us understand the Lord's form. Again, the first verse of Brahma's prayers, chapter 14. Oh, worshipable Lord, I offer my obeisances to you, to attain you, the son of Nanda, with a body, the complexion of a rain cloud, with cloth flashing like lightning, with face shining amongst peacock feathers and a gunja berry decoration, with colorful forest garland, with beauty enhanced by yogurt, rice, stick, horn, and flute, and with soft feet. Nice picture of the Lord's form. And then he quotes this verse, 10:12:39. If, even only once, Or even if by force one brings the form of the Lord into one's mind, Krishna awards himself as the goal. Residing within, he gives the jivas the experience of bliss by destroying all Maya completely. What more can be said? And again, chapter 14, this is Brahma's prayer to Krishna. How greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaj, the cowherd man, and all the other inhabitants of Brajabhumi. There is no limit to their good fortune because Krishna gave them prema, which is the highest bliss, eternal and complete. His human-like form is described in this way from Brahmanda Purana. Krishna's form is eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and gives bliss to the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And finally, Jiva Goswami quotes one of Prabhupada's favorites, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman. But it ends differently. Tam Pritagam Ye Nu Yajanti Vipras Tesham Siddhi Sarva Shashvati Netare Sham. The Brahmanas who worship as he stands on his altar, the one who is greatest among the eternals and greatest among conscious beings, and who fulfills the desires of the many, they and not others attain eternal perfection. Now, that's the end. Jiva Goswami doesn't give the source of that particular quote. The beginning part we're familiar with, but must be presented elsewhere. That's from the Upanishads. So going back to what text 39 is instructing us, it's marveling, Shukadeva Goswami marveling at Aghasura's liberation and the cause of Aghasura's liberation. Just even a slight moment of bhakti. We have some idea about Putana's bhakti. I don't know anything about Aghasura's bhakti. We only know he wanted to kill. And when the cowherd boys and the calves entered, he didn't close his mouth because he was waiting for Krishna to enter so he could kill him. We do. The commentary does say in earlier sections of this chapter, very mercifully, the touch of Krishna's feet on the tongue and the mouth of Aghasura purified him. Similar to Krishna's entering the mouth of Baka, by coming into the touch with the mouth of Baka, he became purified. I mean, he became purified at the same time when he had to spit Krishna out. He still went after Krishna with his beak, and Krishna bifurcated him, but purified. So in what way did Baka also achieve Salokya? So some devotion. At least by contact he had become purified. Putana, she served as mother. And elsewhere it said when she saw Krishna lying newborn child, she felt some sense of his beauty. Oh, such a beautiful child. Then let me kill him. A moment. Doesn't say what that moment of Aghasura was. But Prabhupada is making it very clear. Some, because otherwise how can one get that position? The neutral position is one thing, and the Rupya is another. So somehow, of course, Krishna can bestow his favor one can become a Kripasiddha somehow. Krishna can bestow his mercy. But specifically, the commentary is saying his moment of devotion, Krishna accepted. So it's very interesting. I find it very interesting that it's specifically mentioned early in this chapter, that transition point where the cowherd boys are playing and playing and playing, and Sukadeva Goswami is becoming ecstatic about how fortunate they are. The very next verse speaks of Yogamaya bringing Aghasura. So there was some, it seems that there was some intention Krishna wanted to liberate him. Krishna wanted to have some sport, some pastime, so he brought him, but he also wanted to liberate him. So Aghasura is very fortunate indeed, to get Krishna's touch. We're hearing in the morning class about the hand of Krishna, the touch of Krishna, what the touch of Krishna does. He's anticipating the touch of Krishna. When Krishna sees him and he pays obeisances, he'll touch his head, benedictory hand. And there's so many examples. Prahlad being touched by the hand of Nrsingadev, Dhruva being touched by the conch of Vishnu, and so forth. So many nice examples of the benediction that comes, the position of purification, fearlessness, ecstatic jubilation, transformation, hair standing on end, etc., etc. The touch of the Supreme Lord with his hand or his foot or any part of his body. When the serpent that was swallowing Nanda, Krishna just touched his head with his foot, left foot, and he was freed from that curse. Kali was a little more stubborn, but still became purified by the touch of Krishna's feet. So contact with, when Krishna performs his pastimes and he's subduing demons or killing demons, etc., it looks, may even sound to a worldly person like, oh wow. But he's giving mercy consciously. They're regarding him as enemy, and he's not regarding them as enemy. He's acting as if, okay, you want me to be your enemy, very well. So he reciprocates, but he liberates them. And this long section, that verse from Canto 2, Chapter 7, commentary also describes Arjuna, Bhima, all the soldiers killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in the presence of Krishna. They were liberated. So it makes it seem like, well, that's a good plan. Just become a demon, get in opposition to Krishna, get killed by Krishna, and voila. You know, who needs all the tapasya of the ascetics and everything? Just become a demon. But that, of course, that's not recommended. The recommended is favorable. Anukulina Krishnanushilanam. But the meditation upon the bringing Krishna into the mind in devotion is the means of getting Krishna's association. And then repeated theme here is according to the mood of that regard towards Krishna, the position will be achieved differently. So it's a little qualifier. In addition to Savaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo, in addition to bringing the mind to Krishna, there's a particular mood. So Aghasura didn't get a position in Vrindavan because he didn't have the Vrindavan mood, but he got a position in Vaikuntha. So we're being encouraged by the Bhagavatam and Lord Chaitanya's associates and followers and commentators to follow the Raga Bhakti path and learn this way of devotional life that the residents of Vrindavan had, and again, pointing to their super exalted nature. Super exalted nature. Again and again. Very special position of the residents of Vrindavan, to get the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, whoever one may be, to get the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan. There isn't something higher to achieve or more worthy to achieve. So let's see if there's some discussion. The liberation of Aghasura. Yeah. Do you have a microphone?
Guru Maharaj, I've heard it being described that Aghasura's moment of devotion was when, he was waiting for Krishna to enter his mouth. That was the time.
That was it.
That was the time he was really thinking of Krishna, because Krishna thought, oh, where are the cowherd boys? And, and for a moment he felt like he couldn't do anything. So it was, he did two things. One is that he thought of Krishna at that time, and the other is, he allowed Krishna to meet the cowherd boys. And so that's a service.
Nice explanation. Thinking of Krishna is part of what's being said. It's thinking in the mood of service. That Krishna rejoin the cowherd boys. They're missing him. Okay.
And Jiva Goswami says here that this verse shows that using the fickle mind alone is inferior to using the deity forms made of stone or metal to produce constant vision of Lord's beauty. I'm just wondering how this verse is showing that.
He does make a big thing about it, because it's, there's verses and verses down to the concluding part. I can have some intuitive sense of the connection and why he's making that connection, why he's making that emphasis. It's but my answer is intuitive. It's not authoritative. The word, I don't know what the Sanskrit word is, that fickle is the translation of. Fickle, there's in Jiva Goswami's writings, he refers to the Yamala Tantra, where there's, if I recall correctly, it's 16 faults, primary faults, Mahadoshas. And fickle is one of them. And Jiva Goswami then turns around and says, when Krishna has these faults, they're actually qualities. And he refers specifically to the behavior that Krishna performed when he was stealing butter and yogurt, and the elder gopis would come and complain to Mother Jasoda, saying, your son is so fickle-minded. So fickle or restless, you're used kind of similarly or synonymously. But that's in Krishna's case, it's a quality. In a worshipper's case or a devotee's case, it's not a good quality. Restless, wandering mind, never staying in one place, over here, over there, over there, over there. So I don't know the Sanskrit word that he was using, or the translator used, I guess it's Banuswami, to make it fickle. But trying in a manner that doesn't have the same regulation that deity worship has. Deity worship has some value in helping to curb the restless mind by the regulation involved, the mode of goodness kinds of regulation involved, but also the form of the deity that's suited for those who have restless minds. So deity worship is particularly valuable. Now, how he makes that connection from the verse itself, you found it. Yeah, take for their audience here. That's Anga Pratibha.
Anga Pratima, and so
Pratima.
that's the form of the Supreme Lord. And it says there are many forms, but Krishna is the original form. So I'm assuming that those many forms is also the deity form. One of the forms is the deity form of the Lord. And, so that form being placed in the core of the heart, then it conquers the fickle mind.
Making reference also to Prahlad. Dhruva was given the same recommendation by Narada, along with the austerities and mantra and everything. It was recommended that he worship a deity form. Okay. And that helps curb the restless mind or the fickle mind. You have something?
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So in the reading you were saying that we should take shelter of the Brijabasis, but I also understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Gaudiya Vaishnavas to maintain respectful distance from the Brijabasis and just a little bit not get too close. I was just reading recently when he sent Jagadananda Pandit to Vrindavan, he told him that just stay with Sanatan Goswami and don't mix with the local Brajabasis.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand that on one side we take shelter, on the other side we maintain distance. That's the question.
My understanding of the recommendation of Rupa Goswami is the eternal associates, not the contemporary Brijbasis. That Ragatmika Bhaktas, not the contemporary Brijbasis. Not only Bhakti Siddhanta, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada, and we see what happens when persons don't follow that advice. The potential is there, and it sometimes happens. They become bewildered because they don't understand, and those contemporary Vijvasis may not be on the same level as the Ragatmika Bhaktas. But they're to be respected at the same time because they're Vijvasis. but we don't intimately associate with them. Anything else? Okay. Anything? Okay. Anything online? Okay.
So it says that devotional service is very rare, but we are not so rare because we're one of so many hundreds and thousands of people. So how can we expect to get pure devotional service, which is rare?
How do we expect to get pure devotional service, which is rare?
Yes, but we are like ordinary, at least for myself. I'm an ordinary person.
Yeah.
So how do I expect that to get that?
I had about an hour-long discussion on this topic. If your question is the same as this other person, very sincere person, struggling with different references that say, and then devotional service begins. Or in many places they had, they were reciting the references from their very careful study that Prabhupada was saying devotional service begins from the platform of self-realization or Brahmabhuta, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. From the Brahmabhuta platform, then devotional service begins. So what does that mean? There's two questions. Are we rendering devotional service now or not? Because we're not self-realized. So have we begun? Or if we haven't begun, what are we doing? And then the other side is there, similar to your question, is there any hope in my lifetime that I'm going to achieve that? Which is not exactly what your question is, but similar. It is your question. Okay. Well, so that our discussion went back and forth and back and forth. One of the ways to understand that, both of those questions, or your question and this other person's question, is there are different ways of describing, similar to Lord Chaitanya's description to Satyaraj Khan, and who is a Vaishnav. There's the Kanishta, the Madhyama, and the Uttama, and they're all Vaishnavas. But but Bhakti is Anyabhilasha Shunyam, Jnana Karmadya Navatam. That's Bhakti is Shuddha, squeaky clean. That's Bhakti. So we're not squeaky clean. We're not. We have Anya Abhilas, and we're under. So we're doing sadhana bhakti. So is sadhana bhakti bhakti, or is it not yet bhakti until we're self-realized? So it's bhakti. So there are different perspectives or angles of vision or ways of looking at bhakti. And Rupa Goswami's way of looking at bhakti is from the stage of sadhana. But there's some faith. And faith in what? Well, there's faith in something anyways, but so faith in the goal. And then accepting to our capacity the means to reach the goal. What's that verse that I keep asking you about from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that even in the sadhana stage, there's some faith in the spontaneous stage, something to that effect? Siddhi.
Nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam hridi sadhyata.
Translation for this is in response to his question. Essence, not literal.
Hridi sadhya bhavet sadhya. I can't get the translation exactly, Guru Maharaj, but basically that the definition of sadhana in simple words is something that we do with our mind and senses. You're engaging in this process, but with the goal of attaining bhava, which is a potentiality in every heart. In simple words.
Siddhi bhavati. So that's bhakti. That's sadhana bhakti. And sadhana bhakti is bhakti. So we're engaged in bhakti with that faith that that spontaneous stage will come. And there's potency within that bhakti to carry one to that stage. So what about ordinary persons like us? Bhakti isn't restricted because we're ordinary persons. Bhakti has bhakti shakti. It has potency, and it can carry the soul to that position of spontaneous devotion. So followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are followers of Rupa Goswami. And Rupa Goswami is teaching us how to engage in practice such that it will carry us to that position. And that's the eligibility, is that eagerness to achieve that position. It's not just the eagerness to do the regulations, but to achieve that position. And we do the regulations with the view in mind, or with the faith that it will carry me to that position. And it will carry us to that position. And then devotional service begins. That's self-realization. Like another reference that I like a lot is the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi purport. The last little paragraph Prabhupada writes, where it's not just the conception of the soul beyond the body, but where there's not even the possibility of reverting to fruitive activities. That's Brahmabhuta. Na sochati, na kangsati. That's the symptom. And the condition is there isn't even a possibility. So that's the Brahmabhuta stage. That's the self-realized position. That's where bhakti begins. Bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. So then there's the sadhana stage. That's us. And then there's where devotional service begins. Or the mature stage. If the seed is nurtured nicely, then it will become mature. Or another way of answering this question, it's really simple. Multiple choice question, and the answer is all of the above. So a tulsi is a seed, tulsi seed. B, it's the seed after the seed sprouts, it becomes 2 little leaves. D, it's after the 2 little leaves and it becomes many leaves, that's a tulsi. Or D, it's after there's manjaris. Or E, it's after there's seeds that produce from the manjaris, or all of the above. So if the seed is cultivated properly, if the sadhana bhakti per the definition of Rupa Goswami is followed, that self-realization will come. The stage of bhakti will begin. The stage of mature bhakti will follow. But there must be some faith. Faith in what? Here's this definition. It will carry me to that stage. Spontaneous, loving service. Do we have online questions? No. Sachi Kumar, you have something?
I was thinking of one more thing that can another answer for his question also be about, you know how Rupa Goswami talks about Cheshtarupa and Bhavarupa, like performing bhakti with the, the physical endeavor part, and then there is the Bhavarupa, which is bhakti with emotions, And so until the stage of bhava, basically, um, there is some endeavor, like physical endeavor, to perform the activities of bhakti. But at the stage of bhava, then that the false ego is not there, and that physical endeavor is not there. And it's like, therefore, like
It's
pure
moved by
bhakti.
something else than endeavor. It's moved by
it's
spontaneous
just
emotion.
bhakti, like pure bhakti.
And then bhakti begins. Okay. That's it. Let's hear about Agasura tomorrow. Pretty good. He goes back to Godhead. Until reading this, the simple understanding I had was that he achieved Sayuja. Everyone saw it, just like Shishupal, everyone saw. He merged into the body of Krishna. And they, not the demigods, they celebrated when Agasura was killed. They showered flowers because he was like a bad guy, and they were really afraid of him. And he was one of the demons they wanted Krishna to destroy, not only Kamsa, Kamsa's cronies. So they were very happy, but they were also astonished because he achieved liberation. And how is this? He's a demon. How did he get liberation? It's similar to the question comes again in chapter 1 of Canto 7, where Yudhishthira asked the same question: how is it possible? It's a big topic. It's an important topic in the Bhagavatam, or in our understanding of the bhakti process, of how persons, even persons inimical, by fixing their mind on Krishna, they can become purified. And Shishupal became purified. And thus he achieved liberation. He chanted Krishna's names many times. He became purified. And we're chanting Krishna's names many times. How liberated do you feel? There's an effect for sure. And making the mind. There's this verse, surprising verse, that Narada says to Yudhishthira, in my opinion, those who are enemies of Krishna and those that are fearful of Krishna can fix their mind on Krishna better. And commentary says he was ridiculing that kind of fixing the mind. But it's true, like, the example is given of some insect, and there's a wasp that's chasing the insect, and he goes into a hole, and the wasp is drilling down in that hole to get that insect, and the insect is very fearful. They're not thinking of anything other than that wasp that's trying to get me. So when someone's trying to get you, you're thinking of that person. Your mind is fixed. Your mind doesn't go somewhere. It's self-preservation. Fear, very strong force. But beyond fear is love. That's what the commentators say exactly. How strong is the position of the love of the residents in Vrindavan, because when the most dangerous of demons come, Yes, they take shelter. Oh, Krishna, but their fear is driven away by that mindfulness of Krishna. They're feeling protected, not the kind of fear that we know. Oh, here comes something, some aggressor. They're feeling for the protection and safety of Krishna, not for theirs. It's a whole other, the power of the power of loving attraction for Krishna is very compelling. There isn't something higher than that. Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.